Once again, excuse the lack of a pop filter today. I am back to do my recap of UFC Apex 104, UFC Vegas 104, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze Dos in the main event. And would I say this card delivered on its promise? Yeah, probably. At the end of the day, I think the main event was a different result than I expected, to be honest, because, well, if you'll recall, I picked Marvin Vettori to defeat Roman Dolidze yet again, but the fight had a pretty similar feel to what I was expecting from it. And further on down the card, there wasn't much else. I'd say Chidi Njokuani versus Elizu Zaleski, that under-delivered because of Zaleski. And we'll talk more about that, obviously. Hernandez Halabaugh, about what was expected, to be honest. Blackshear versus Gibson, about what was expected, to be honest. Brinson Ribeiro versus Dayar Nergoshian was a fight where I didn't really know what to make of it, because Nergoshian is a guy who is prone, I think, to a boring fight because of his lack of insistence on action. And Ribeiro is somebody who is not pathologically capable of really doing that kind of fight, but does have the raw physical attributes of a guy who could make the fight boring, and that fight was not boring, so that's good. Waldo Cortez Acosta, Ryan Spawn was about what was expected. Kevin Villegas versus Suwon Choi, about what was expected. Su Young Yu versus AJ Cunningham, about what was expected. Carlos Vera had a cool finish. Sam Hughes versus Stephanie Luciano, different in ways from what I expected, but generally had the dynamics of what I was expecting. Andre Lima was a pleasant surprise against Daniel Barres. Priscilla Cachoeira got a knockout, and Carly Judice looked pretty good as well. So the night started off pretty well and then kind of kept going at about what I expected rate, basically. There wasn't a lot of fights that had any meaning higher up on the card that were phenomenally better than what I was expecting, but nothing was phenomenally worse. The only things that were a little bit of a letdown, like I said, was honestly nothing. Like, everything at least met the expectations. So I guess that is that's good. That being said, the UFC bragging about there being 9 finishes on this card, and like, who says the Apex cards aren't very good? It wasn't that good. Like, that's the problem. And this is the problem. If you're going to judge things by finishing rate, you've screwed up. Because if you look at finishing rate, like, take a random set of, I don't know, 25 UFC fighters, and then go back and look at their regional records and how many finishes they got versus how many decisions they got, and you'll find that they finished a lot more people beforehand. And if you watch a general regional card, say a CFFC card or LFA or Coliseum Fights or Titan FC, War, I forget what it is. It's a Carolina Performance, Warfare FC or something like that. WFF, basically. Or like Fury FC. You'll see a lot more finishes than in the UFC. So, like, by that metric, it's a better product. And that's the thing, is that the UFC has never been about the finishing rate. It's about the level of the fighters competing and the premium aspect of the fight game product that we're supposed to have. And more, the UFC doesn't seem to really be delivering that. Like, even on pay-per-views. I understand that, like, the televised portion cards have always been a little bit weaker. They're supposed to be. They're a tier below product. But there are a lot of fights that just probably aren't UFC caliber on these Apex cards. There wasn't anything that screamed that here, but like, there are a couple fighters that probably shouldn't be on the UFC that were on this card. Looking at Daniel Barres, looking at AJ Cunningham. I don't know. Okay, Barres I have a little soft spot for, but like Josiane Nunez versus Priscilla Cachoeira, Eunice Dubin, Josiah Musasa probably should be in the future, but he's not really now. Even Carlos Vera, who beat him, probably really not UFC caliber if we really think about that. Like, if we're trying to put a premium label on UFC fighters, like, it's just not there. But anyways, let's talk about these fights. Let's roll on. In the main event, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. The hallmarks of the prior fight were there. Everything that Vettori probably could have utilized to actually win this fight was on the table. When he elected to throw in combination, throw in bunches, he was able to win those exchanges. The problem was that outside of round 1 and round 3, he didn't do that a lot. He realistically did not take the lessons of the first fight, and it looks like the transfer over to ATT, which is a very, very good gym, has come at a very bad time for him because he's in decline. This is the problem with a lot of camp changes. It's not necessarily that they're like a bad idea. Going to ATT, probably never a bad idea, but they tend to be trying to change something that is trying to find an easy fix. Not necessarily easy fix, but a simplistic fix. There we go. A simple fix for a problem. And in Vettori's case, I think that was getting sandbagged by Jared Cannonier and going, well, if I go get new coaches, it'll fix some things and it'll click. It'll click like that. And it's like, really generally doesn't. And this was kind of the case where like he had a game plan that, as much as Dolidze fought like a little bit differently than he did the first time, a little bit higher pace, a little bit better idea, feel for range and so on, a little bit more capable of maintaining a pocket to his advantage, which was completely lacking in the first fight. I still think that if Vettori had just fought at the pace he did last time and had the same kind of mentality of throwing in relative bunches, he probably would have won. And the weirdest thing about this fight was, of course, the commentary's obsession with the idea that this is a mirror match. This is two full force power punchers going head to head right now, and it makes sense that they're just kind of one and done. And it really doesn't for Vettori. I get that he looks like a power puncher. Like, he has the look of a guy that should hit hard. And he has the look of a guy who's loading up on his punches too, to be honest. But dude doesn't hurt anybody. Like, there's a complete lack of finishes on his record. And let me see here. Marvin Vettori, what are his finishes? So, in the UFC, at the UFC level, he guillotine choked Alberto Uda. He rear naked choked Carl Roberson. If I recall correctly, I think he did hurt Roberson. But that's about it. Decision with Andrew Sanchez. Keep in mind, Andrew Sanchez fades badly in fights, and he still couldn't finish him. Decision against Cesar Mutanch Fajea, who is not particularly durable. Like, the main knock on Mutanch was the fact that he was kind of hurtable. Not necessarily finishable per se, because like he only got finished by like George Masvidal and Sam Alvey and CB Dollaway. But like, case in point, getting finished by CB Dollaway, not a great sign. Not a great sign at all. But like, he would routinely get hurt in fights and have to come back through like physical mobbing and like something he probably shouldn't have been able to do to Vettori to survive. And, you know, he saw a decision against him. Roman Dolidze in the first fight, obviously. Dolidze getting hit a lot and not really anything there. Kevin Holland, who doesn't really lose decisions, if we're being completely honest. Like, if you look at Kevin Holland around the 2021 era when he fought Vettori, this probably was a finishable fight for Vettori if he was the heavy puncher we're thinking he is. So yeah, there's not really any reason for that talk, I guess is what I'm getting at. And it was kind of bugging me. But yeah, I did have Dolidze winning the second, fourth, and fifth round pretty cleanly. I gave the first and the third to Vettori. Wouldn't have a problem with the first going to Vettori for a 4-1, or to Dolidze for a 4-1 finish. And I have no card that could have gotten Vettori the win. The only way Vettori would have gotten a win is with competent refereeing and Dolidze getting docked points for being sternly warned, I swear, like 4 times for fingers. And at some point, like, why are we even bothering with the stern warnings? Why are we even bothering pretending that there are rules if we're just going to let the fouls continue to happen? So that was my take on that fight. Kind of forgettable, but I wasn't expecting a ton from it. Elizeu Zaleski versus Chidi Njokuani. This was actually the letdown fight because it just seemed like Zaleski came out here with no game plan that was going to be able to work. He seemed to come out here and like not really have any good ideas for creating a pocket, not really having any good ideas for creating a mid-range striking game, which kind of is his jam, and also like where Chidi tends to get into a little bit of trouble because it's the range that, not that he's defective at, but it's the range that tends to bring out his worst decision-making aspects. Whereas if you're going to let him stay at kicking range, he's just going to teep kick you to death. He's just going to front kick you to death. He's just going to be the super tall dude and the super long dude, and it's going to work out, I think, perfectly fine. So that was kind of that part of the fight, and then when Zaleski would want to go inside, he would basically just try to cover way too much ground. Like trying to be the full in or full out fighter. And that doesn't work. So he got punished a lot there. In the second round, he hit a knee. went down, and Chidi finished the job with a little bit of ground and pound. So Chidi Njokuani gets another win, missed weight for this fight, which is not great. And I still do not like the idea of him at 170. Like, dude, you're 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. You don't need to be fighting at 170. And I don't think fundamentally being the bigger guy really helps him out. Like, his losses to Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, Albert Duraev, and Gregory Rodriguez were not, like, I don't want to say completely divorced from, like, size, but, like, it wasn't the key factor. I mean, like, none of those guys are even all that big. Like, Duraev's only, like, what, 5'11"? Like, himself kind of sometimes looks like he probably could fight it at welterweight. Rodriguez is admittedly huge, but, like, Rodriguez is also quite good. And then Oleksiejczuk, who, despite being a former light heavyweight, is probably again a welterweight, all things considered. Like, I'm just trying to remember. There was a fight of Oleksiejczuk's where he weighed in at like 190 something. I'm trying to remember which fight it was. It was early days. What was it? Yeah, like, man, I don't know. Maybe it was like 203 against Khalil Roundtree. Like he's a guy who probably weighs about like 210 pounds. So, like, you know, he is a middleweight, but like he could probably get down there if he really got a good strength and conditioning. Anyways, a good performance from Chidi, even if I feel like it was more about Zaleski dropping the ball. But hey, sometimes the opponent drops the ball, and you've got to actually be able to pick it up, because sometimes fighters don't. And then we get to our bad decision of the night, Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Hallbaugh. Now, to be clear, I don't... excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing a fair bit during this. I don't have a problem... Well, okay, I do have a problem with Hernandez winning. I do in a real world have an issue with a victory being called here for Alexander Hernandez, because I do think that this should have been a 29-28 Hallbaugh fight, pretty much from the hop. I don't think that there's really any other particularly justifiable score. But if you are going to score it for Hernandez, this is the key, is that you kind of need to not score it the way that they did, because none of these cards make any sense. Because on all three judges' scorecards, somehow we ended up with, get ready for this, Alexander Hernandez winning the first round, which I don't think is remotely clear, because Hallbaugh hurt him, like badly hurt him. That was Hallbaugh's best round. He outlanded him in the round, significant in total strikes. He had him hurt. He didn't get taken down. There was no ground game. It was a well, he didn't get taken down, but he got taken down for like 9 seconds. So realistically, that's Hallbaugh's round. So, like, the worst scorecard that was issued was Eric Cologne's 30-27 for Hernandez, because all three judges gave the first round Hernandez, and then the other two gave the second round to Hallbaugh, which makes no sense. I'll get into that in a moment. But, like, at least Hernandez is, like, consistently, I'm just not scoring this for Hallbaugh. I am scoring this for Hernandez, and you can just freaking deal with it. Whereas the other two, they fail on logic, because round two comes around, and again, Hallbaugh outlands Hernandez a little bit more. I thought he'd get the better of the striking. I scored the round for him after all. But, like, he also gets taken down for like 2 minutes and drowned there in, you know, top control and so on. Like, you know, at least there's grappling success for Hernandez. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a criteria of the scoring that Hernandez could lay claim to. Effective grappling. The damage and the striking, I think, went to Hallbaugh, and that's why the round goes to him. But there was something he did. And then the third round, there's not much to talk about. 4 minutes, 29 seconds of top control for Hernandez. There's nothing really to talk about there. But, like, the best round for Hallbaugh, or the worst round for Hernandez, depending on how you want to look at it, is round one. So the fact that two judges gave round two to Hallbaugh and round one to Hernandez is mind-bogglingly bad. So anyways, I had Hallbaugh winning, like I said, and it was a little bit surprising because I picked Hernandez to win, and I expected Hernandez to have success early. And obviously his success in this fight came late. That's not normally when we see Hernandez have success, because Hernandez's issue is he comes out with like one idea really to apply to the fight, maybe two, maybe a striking idea and a grappling idea. And then when it stops working, he starts to fall apart. So it was kind of weird to see him come on strong later after losing the early parts of the fight. But Hernandez gets the W here. It doesn't overly matter, but Holloway deserved this win, and he should have got it. Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. Gibson started really well here. Actually looked like he was having a lot more like defensive striking success, a lot more movement, a little bit of like shoulder roll going on there, a little bit more of just not using his like raw aggression and durability. Still very aggressive, obviously, still coming forward, still trying to put the pace on it and trying to get takedowns. Got a takedown, got out scrambled, ended up in trouble at the end of the round, and then in round 2 takes him down again and gets reversed, gets side controlled, gets elbows dropping on him, and then gets Kimura'd. So Blackshear does his thing. He out-scrambles Gibson. This went basically how I expected it to go, because really it just isn't a game for Cody Gibson to win that fight. But another bad commentary moment is, of course, and the UFC does this repetitively. Like, they're just talking about Cody Gibson, like, wanting to quit his teaching job and focus on fighting full time. And it's like, yes, let's just continue to announce to the world that we don't pay our fighters crap. and move on. Gibson is a seriously exciting fighter. Like his I forget if this is his second or third UFC run, but it's been really, really, really fun. That fight with Brad Katona on the finale was really fun. His fight with Miles Johns was fairly fun. Brian Kelleher was a nice quick stoppage. Him and Chad Anheliger had a pretty fun time as well. And then this one, like, he's a fun fighter, and apparently we don't pay him enough. Don't pay him enough to be a full-time fighter. That's sad. It's not like he's some young prospect or anything. DR Negotiate versus Brenson Hibaro. Hibaro impressed me a little bit here, but how much is that Hibaro impressing me, and how much of that is Negotiate just not being very good? Hibaro was able to work from the outside, but also keep it interesting coming inside, making things happen. Negotiate gets a takedown in the second round. Ready to do a guillotine choke, which didn't look great. Hibaro uses it to stand up, though. That's not too bad. Negotiate back controls him and puts him back on the ground. And then Hibaro grabs Kimura from bottom, basically power rolls his way to top position, and boom, there's a tap out. And Brenson Hibaro's got a second win in the UFC, which, to be honest, is 2 more than I thought he would. So maybe I have to reevaluate him as a fighter. I'm not saying like I'm expecting him to be ranked or anything, but he's a guy who has the size and the raw physicality to, like, do some things. It's just I thought that there was no real there was no real technical or tactical thoughts to his game, and I'm starting to realize that there's a little bit of game planning. This is 2 fights in a row where I think he fundamentally had the right ideas, so that's nice to see. I still doubt the technique part, and I think that Negotiate losing has more to do with him than anything else. But yeah. You know what? I look forward to being wrong again, I guess. I probably won't learn my lesson. I'll probably pick against him again. Kevin Vejos versus Suwo Choi. It was what you expect to be. Choi had some early success from range, but he could not hold it at range. Gets clonked, gets dropped. Boom. There you go. Job done. Vejos gets his win in his debut. I'm not sure what it means, if we're being completely honest, because Choi kind of gets hurt, kind of gets knocked out. It is kind of that thing. Like, if you look at his record, there's a reason he's 11-8, which is not a good record for the UFC. He's got knocked out by Steve Garcia, Mike Trezano, and also got dropped by Brain. Why are you doing this? Josh Kulabau. That's who I'm thinking of. Josh Kulabau, as well as Gavin Tucker back in the day. There's just a fundamental not durability to him that I don't know, doesn't really answer the question. Not a bad thing for Vejos. He got the job done in 3 minutes, 9 seconds. He got through the reach pretty easily and so on. So, he did what he could do in this fight. It's just, there wasn't a way to really dispel my doubts about him in it. Waldo Cortez Acosta, Ryan Spawn. Yeah, Ryan Spawn needs to go back down to 205 because apparently that's all that kept him training, because he looked out of shape, he fought out of shape, and he got beat up by Waldo Cortez Acosta. Enough said. Again, a foul-heavy fight here. Waldo Cortez Acosta got fouled him like 4 times. I want to say like 2 or 3 low blows and like 1 or 2 eye pokes. I can't remember now, but like there were a lot of fouls here. A point should have been taken, but I guess it doesn't matter because he pounded him out in the second round anyway. So congratulations, Waldo Cortez Acosta. You continue to do good things while also looking flawed as all heck. And Ryan Spawn continues to fall apart. Also, I didn't like the corner work here in between the first and the second round here because the corner of Ryan Spawn was like... How do I put this? Really trying to gas him up. Really trying to make him like feel good about himself. And I think when you have to do that, especially with a fighter who looks just exhausted already, and it's been 1 round of not even particularly fervent fighting, just throw in the towel. I just kind of wish. Su Young Yu rolled over AJ Cunningham, although to be clear, not in a manner that would justify the odds that were on him in this fight, because again, there were some fights where I totally picked the favorite, but the odds were a little bit insane, and this was kind of one of them. I don't know if Choi looked like a minus 700 guy, but, you know, he did win all 3 rounds, in my opinion, handled business, and got the job done. So I guess that's all you can ask. Josias Musasa versus Carlos Vera. Early on, Musasa looks pretty good, resisting some takedowns. The obvious physical gifts of his game are there, and like along with some like, you know, reasonably solid basic fundamentals. But eventually Vera catches him with a head kick, knocks him down, and takes his back and chokes him. And that was kind of the thing. This was my big money win because I got Carlos Vera at plus 600 odds for this fight, which is insane. No one debuting from like the African regional scene should be a minus 910 favorite. That shouldn't exist. That shouldn't be on the table. Favorite? Sure. Pick to win? Absolutely. I picked Musasa to win this fight. But like, there's just not enough like talent level or competition level to really justify that kind of faith in somebody debuting in the UFC off of that kind of scene. So congratulations to Carlos Vera. Tip of the hat to you, my man. And he gets the job done. Sam Hughes had a split decision victory against Stephanie Luciano. I did score the 4th fight for Luciano, but like to be clear, I gave the second round to Hughes very confidently. And I gave the first round to Luciano by like, you know, flip a coin, basically. Like they're both incredibly close rounds. I'm kind of interested. What were the stats for the first and the third round? I'm kind of wondering. Let's see here. So Luciano outlanded her plus 10 in the first round, and in the third round it was Hughes plus 4 in terms of total strikes landed. But yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about that. Hughes had the only definitive round, so I have no problem with her winning. Luciano has some good building blocks, but there is a put it together sort of aspect to her. It's a classic issue of like Hughes has no real, how should I put this? Does not have a terribly high ceiling of any kind. And Luciano has a much higher ceiling, but she hasn't really put it together yet, like in any real shape or form. So there you go. That is that fight in a nutshell. Andre Lima had a 10-8 second round and absolutely mauled Daniel Barres to a stoppage. I was really, really excited about this fight, really, after it was done, because my only issue with Andre Lima, because I think he's a solid, deadly striker with efficiency and clinical precision. I think he's a pretty decent grappler. He's a solid anti-wrestler. He's got all the physical tools. And I think he has like a lot of like really good composure and so on. Like everything is there. He's just a little too slow paced for flyweight. And round 1 was a little bit like that. But as the fight went on, he started getting a lot more comfortable. He started getting out there. Landed 108 significant strikes, which for the record is one of only 3 fighters on the card to land in triple digits. And the other 2 were in a main event with 2 extra rounds to work with. So there you go. The pace here was good. If this is a sign of what Andre Lima is going to do in the future, I am all here for it. But he gets the rear naked choke victory over Daniel Barres here and continues on rocking through at a UFC undefeated record, which is now up to 4 wins and no losses. Now, granted, Igor Severino, Mitch Raposo, Felipe Dos Santos, Daniel Barres, he is due for like a step up in competition, but absolutely looking great so far. Priscilla Cachoeira knocked out Josiane Nunez with a uppercut. The less said about this fight, the better. Don't get me wrong, it was a quick, fun, sloppy fight, and I guess that's all you could really ask for from women's bantamweight. But like, it was bad, and it was two fighters that like I have zero faith to like fix anything wrong with their game at all. Number one, because of age, but number two, because there is no sign that they are. Like, Cachoeira is just kind of a swing wild clinger, and Nunez is this 5'2" girl who has the little bit of like a little bit of pop in her hands, a little bit of decent timing, but like there is nothing consistent to her game that actually works at this level. And obviously she's much too small for the weight class. So yeah. And then in the opener, Eunice Dubin versus Carly Giudice. Dubin does not belong here. Maybe she could with time, but she's 28 years old. This is what happens when you fight nobody who has actually like professional fights on your way to Contender Series. And then you fight somebody on Contender Series who is also crushing cans. And you beat them. And you beat them in an exciting and, impressive fashion. But then you end up in the UFC and it's like, you're really just kind of heavy-handedness. And that's like kind of it. There's like some defensive aspects. So in some ways she was better than I expected. But in other ways it's just, yeah, anyone who's able to relatively defend against her and like have any kind of concept of range is probably just going to wreck her. And Carly Giudice did that. Got the W here with a high kick. And I'm happy for that because Giudice, of course, was rocking an 0-2 record in the UFC coming into this fight. Or I guess 0-1 with a loss on Contender Series. And so for her to go out there and get a win after like being really, really, really competitive with Gabriela Fernandez and really competitive with Ernesta Caracate is a really, really good sign. So 2 thumbs up for that. And that was the fight card. Made some money, had a decent night of picks, and I will see you next time for predictions for, what are we coming up? We got that Leon Edwards card, don't we? Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady on March 22nd is next up. What else we got on that card? Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. That's pretty cool. Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. That's pretty cool. Molly McCann versus Alexa Thainara. I can't say that the name is ringing a bell. I'll have to go back and look at that. Maybe that'll be interesting. I don't know. Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. I'm fine with that. Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. That's pretty fun. Chris Padilla versus Jai Herbert. Chris Padilla has been way more competitive than I expected him to be. Loner Kavanaugh versus Lonnie Kavanaugh. I'm gonna be stuck calling him Loner for like his entire career. And Felipe Dos Santos. That's not bad. What are we doing with Marcin Tybura and Mick Parkin? I have zero interest in that fight. Andre Pulayev versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Not really interested. Pooja Tomar versus Shanna Bannon. Neither of you are UFC caliber is, I guess, what I'm kind of stuck with saying. I guess Tomar did beat Amanda Dos Santos, so I guess that's something. Callan Loughran is still around. How does Callan Loughran lose to a fighter who then gets cut and is still here? That's a little bit that's a bit baffling to me. But anyways, he's up against Nathan Fletcher, who also is not UFC caliber, and then Guram Kutaladze versus Cowie Fernandez. Guy's pretty fun. Why is that the opener? Why is that this far down? I don't understand. Apparently, there was also supposed to be Jack Della Maddalena versus Leon Edwards, which would have been a better fight. And Omar Sy versus Alonso Metafield was also scheduled in the card, but fell apart. And Molly McCann versus Estela Nunez was on the card. I'm gonna review Thainara, but probably a better fight by subtraction. Sorry, I have hiccups. Social media links down below. I'll see you next time.